the list. Any further discussion? Yes.
Is it real bonehead thing to be outside legal norms? I now write down the number.
What's wrong with you? Yeah, just say it so that it's recorded.
I mean,
I'll leave the tape on.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah, she writes the minutes.
But you already have voted, so. Wait, I'm just going to leave that on. Okay?
Thank you, Sally.
I didn't think of that, but.
All right, so the motion on the table is an amendment by Mr. Zendes to change Mrs. Dooley's main motion from 5% to 4%. All those, is there questions? Yes?
I just wanted to clarify. So what's the reason, Kelly, for going from 5 to 4? Just out of curiosity.
You didn't make a motion.
Sorry? Mr. Zendes?
Because she's arguing for 5, he's arguing for 4, so it's probably like half and half. Actually, well, 3. Sorry, 3. So it's like go in between, you know? Instead of us differing and arguing, well, she does more work, and well, okay, she does, but it's a part of her job. Just go with the 4.
All set, Mr. Zendes? Can I make a motion first? You can.
Second.
Motion. Matter of fact, it's not your motion. You can just ask for it. We can have it. All right. So we're going to have a secret ballot. We need ballots. Ballots are forthcoming. The deputy speaker. Order please. The president and the deputy speaker will distribute ballots. You would mark aye, one favor, aye if you're in favor of the amendment to the motion. You're going to mark no if you're not in favor, and you're going to write abstain if you abstain. So it's aye, no, or abstain to the amendment to the motion. No, secret ballot.
Oh, they're doing that? Oh, thank you. Oh, what?
It's financial matters, so back this afternoon.
Anybody not get one?
Yes. So the one ballot can be counted. Also, I just want to double check to make sure we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, check the legality of the secret ballot, because that's the whole body. I just want to make sure that we can vote on a non-electoral matter as a secret ballot. I just want to make sure, I'm pretty sure we can, but safe to double check. So I'm calling for a 5-minute recess. Don't go far. We'll go to the cafe and get some. Take 10 minutes. 5 minutes. We're going to resume and announce the results of the secret ballot. See, several people violated my order to go to the cafe. Not go to the cafe.
They went to the cafe.
I'm going to clear a quorum present. We're back in order. I need a motion before I can reveal the ballots. I need a motion to vote by secret ballot.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Kelly, seconded by Mr. Andrews. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Evangelista opposed for some reason. The motion carries. All right.
Should we vote again?
How about that? We already have the ballots. The final vote tally is 18 in favor, 1 opposed, and 3 abstentions. The motion carries. And just so you all know, you can vote by secret ballot if you vote, if you have a majority vote saying vote that way. And the reason why we can is because it can compel members to vote more by their wishes, which is what the intent was anyway. So the motion carries, and the motion is amended. The motion on the table now is to give our employees across the board 4% cost of living increase. That is what's on the table for discussion. After the list, just put out.
I would like to say this. I thought about it in 5 minutes recess, and I think that right now, tentatively, 4%, there's number, call it cost of living increase, great, we got our stuff done, we can hand it out budget packet to ourselves and worry about it tomorrow. However, I think that a better way to deal with any increase in salary at this point would be a merit increase. We're a corporation with a president and a board of directors, and I think that it really should be up to the personnel review committee, as well as the evaluations that any president does on his or her employees to determine what type of raise someone should get. I think that would inspire folks more than a COLA increase, and it would also reflect the job performance of folks, as well as encourage people to do the best they can and not just fail. Now, with that being said, I think 4% COLA increase is good to put for now, but keep that in the back of your head for when the budget comes up during the budget.
Mr. Leonetti.
When the PRC comes up, is that what we're going to be voting on, or the merit increase you're talking about?
That is up to that committee, but that's what I would encourage it to be. There is no PRC right now. Dr. King is the PRC.
PEC, Personal Evaluation Commission.
Or whatever. And I'm going to appoint that next meeting. We're going to include some folks for that.
So that would be...
Yeah.
Okay.
They would talk about that, and I hope that they would look at the job performance evaluations that past presidents as well as this president has done. But I think that might be the better way to do it. Especially since I don't think Joe and Sally are going to use it. Are you?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you going to use it? Thank you. That's it.
Any further discussion on the main motion? Yes, Ms. Weiss.
Would be in.
Oh, is the main motion what Chris just brought?
No, the main motion is for a 4% increase.
And
Hearing no further discussion. Call this to a vote. Yes, Mr. Howell.
Can I get a copy of this? What was the previous motion?
That was to amend the main motion from the 5% to 4%. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor of the main motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Abstentions? Mrs. Dooley abstains. Mr. Evangelista abstains. Mr. Leonetti abstains. Mr. Bonanno abstains. And the motion carries. Our next order of business is new business, item C, conflict of interest. Mr. Resendez, and I'll be passing to Gavin.
All right. I'm reading this for her.
Mr. Hayden has the floor.
Dear Parliament members, as a fellow Parliament member who puts much effort into seeing that fair and unbiased decisions are made for the benefit of the Rhode Island college community, I am asking that we together support an issue to the Bylaws Commission. Thus, I recommend motioning to send forth the addition of, quote, no executive officer or student community government may serve on any other student organization's executive board, end quote, to Article 5 of the SCG bylaws. This is to prevent and or eliminate what may seem to be partial judgment in any favor, or in any group's favor. Many other student organization or government communities in the nation already have this placed in their constitution, and I believe it is time student community government incorporated begins to follow a similar trends that could only assist in our ability as a whole to strive toward just and neutral voting actions. We all are working together with this common interest of serving our community to the best of our abilities. The Bylaws Commission has the ability to allow this, as taken from SCG's webpage. As taken from SCG's webpage, the powers and responsibilities of the Commission exist to further the causes of just, fair, and merciful consideration of the best interests of all parties. It is not possible to be an executive officer of SCG and an executive board member of a student organization and give equal time to both. It also places them into a position where they must choose which to support. Lastly, when an executive board member is placed in the position of executive office, or in the position of executive officer, places Parliament in an uncomfortable position of choosing to respect the position we voted them into, or going against persons who may have an agenda, or at least look to have one. Respectfully, Judge Menendez. That's it.
I just wanted to say that being on the executive board is considered a full-time position between the Parliament meetings, getting ready for them, and doing office hours. So if it's considered a full-time job, how can you equally commit to another organization and be a student? It's sort of not possible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would disagree with the intent of the motion. I would respectfully disagree with Mr. James and Mr. Menendez on the spirit of the motion, in that I wouldn't say it's impossible to be an executive board member of student government and executive board member of an organization, because I think we've witnessed executive board members of both serve as executive officers, and probably each year of student government's history dating back to the 1970s. And to change that, to alter that, would be changing the way things have been done for a long time. Now, because something has been done for a long time doesn't make it right. And sometimes you do have to change things that have been done for a long time when the eventual outcome serves the student body better. Well, in this case, it may and it may not, and here's why. When I joined Parliament 4 years ago, we had 9 or 10 members. Just curious, how many people here are officers in a student organization?
What if these people aren't executive officers?
That is true. I'm just wondering, how many Parliament members are officers in a student organization? Roll number 5? Any kind of officer. You're an officer.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not on the executive board of the anchor.
You're an officer.
That's not the executive
There's
board.
a difference.
The executive board of the anchor is.
Top 4. Top 4 and top 4. That's what we're talking about.
Excuse me, I have the floor. Mr. Speaker. Yes, the top 4. But the arts and entertainment editor of the anchor, I believe, has a lot of responsibility. So, just as any other officer, how about organizations that have 5 members of the executive board? I don't want to hear this top 4 nonsense.
The arts and entertainment director, is that an executive board? No, it's not. Is that I or 5?
I'm the vice president. I can tell you it's not.
Mr. Kelly,
Point of information?
Yeah.
I'd like to pass the floor to Mr. Spaulding. Better answer that
Arts and
question.
entertainment editor is a higher fire position by the executive board. It's not an executive board, so in my opinion, it doesn't even apply to this conversation.
Point of order. Relevance, Mr. Speaker.
My relevance is this. Why are we going to have put in a rule where it can't be an executive board member of an organization and an executive board member of student government, when an officer of an organization may have the same amount of duties, but under the provisions of this rule, that officer would be able to serve as executive board member.
Point of inquiry?
Yes.
Is there not a slight bit of bias, no offense or anything, but you do hold executive board memberships in many organizations,
And as
multiple
you
organizations.
just found out,
I'm sorry.
I've been interrupted by 9 points already. I haven't been able to make my main point.
I'll give the floor when he's all set. You have the floor.
Is there not a point of bias because you do hold other positions that really you're kind of proving the point of this new bylaw?
That's not the point of inquiry. You're making an argument against me. The point of inquiry is to state
No, my point of inquiry was, is there not a bias?
You're asking this conflict of interest for me
Yes.
to debate this?
Yes.
No. How can the Parliament debate anything? We're all members of student organizations, except for maybe 1 or 2 of us.
That's true, but are they all stipended exec board
I pay the
members?
student activity fee. Therefore, I should be able to debate this. I can debate anything I want. I can vote on anything I want unless it directly affects my organization.
Point of information.
Yes, Mr. Andrews.
As a student activity paying student, you're allowed to be a member of organizations. This would just prevent you from being an officer.
You know, why are we recognizing all these points of information when people are just... I don't understand what's going on here. I'm trying to make an argument here. I'm just being interrupted by point information after point information.
All right.
We're
We're going to let Mr. Speaker finish his point. No more points of information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because most of these things I address at some point in my statement. Where was I? Anyone can be a member of a student organization, but any student activity fee paying student can be an officer in that organization according to that organization's bylaws. That needs to be kept in mind by this body. Now, like I was saying, when I first joined Parliament, there were 9 or 10 members. And at other points in Parliament, there would have been 8 or 9 members, including the 6-member executive board. As we just found out, the majority members of Parliament are themselves members of executive boards. If this were to go into effect, that would preclude a majority of the membership from serving as members on the executive council. Now, of course, they could resign their positions in their clubs. Now, is that going to hurt their club? Yes, it will. It could. I'm sure someone else could step up in some cases. But in clubs with 9 or 10 members, 7 or 8 members, just as SCG itself has been in the past, will that hurt your club? You damn bet it will. I think that has to be kept in mind by everyone here. Because I know, for example, in the chess club, we have maybe 7 active members, of which two of which at least are executive board members of student government. And if this were in effect, chess club would not have a president, would not even exist today, because I started chess club last year as the president. So there's an entire club that we know wouldn't exist if this rule were in effect in the past. Now, I'm sure the list of that would go on, considering how many executive board members of clubs sit on Parliament are elected to offices and have been in the history of SCG going back to the very beginning. Another very important point I would like to bring up, and I just have a couple more important points I'd like to bring up, is yes, you're on the executive board. If you're a 5th executive board member or an officer, this line talks about executive board, but if you're an officer in an organization, the spirit of this is saying, well, how can you devote the time to both? Well, why don't we extend it to all officers of organizations? If you have any officer position, whether it's hired, fired, elected, or what have you, appointed by God, I think they have a responsibility to that organization, do they not? So, itself, with respect, this particular proposal, as it's worded, I think fails to recognize the fact that if, as the makers of the proposal suggest, it's impossible to hold 2 executive board positions, I'd say it's impossible to hold 2 officer positions in general, because officer positions, by their very title of an officer, requires a certain amount of time, dedication, and work. WXIN has a 5-member executive board. Each member of that executive board is required to allocate the same amount of time to the organization as the other 4. So you can't just say the top 4. That's disingenuous. Officers are officers are officers. Whether they're hired, fired, appointed, it doesn't matter. They still have a dedication. So if that's amended in here, that would, of course, change that whole argument. But we need to make sure that we're honest with ourselves and saying, if you're an officer, yes, you should be a student government officer and officer executive board at the same time. My second point, and probably more important point, is this. Are we going to limit ourselves to the pool of people that can be serving on student government? I think no, it's a bad idea, because as student activity fee paying students, we have an obligation to make sure that every student has an equal opportunity to excel. We're all required to sign conflict of interest statements. Everyone's aware of this, right? On those conflict of interest statements, what do we say? We write every club that we're part of. Those statements we sign are public. It's no secret what clubs we're part of, because we always abstain on things directly related to our club anyway, as Parliament members and as executive council members. Now, if the spirit of this is the same, the executive council cannot exhibit impartiality when making a decision relating to their club, guess what? They're not allowed to make a decision relating to the club in the first place. That's why we have a conflict of interest statement already in place. So all this would be doing is reinforcing a rule that already exists. So I'm not really sure what this would have as an impact, other than saying, oh, now you can't be part of any of the student organization's executive board. Even though you're a fine leader and you're fine enough to be elected to a leadership position in student government, you can't be a part of another student organization's executive board. They're going to be without you as a leader. If someone feels that they have the ability to dedicate that time, that's on them. And secondly, that's on the people who elect them. It's no secret who's a member of a student organization and who's an officer in a student organization. If the members of those bodies think that that person can hold those two office positions at the same time and run them effectively, then by all means, they should have that right to vote for who they think will be able to do it best. Think about that. If you're a member of two organizations at the same time, both of those organizations elected you. Both organizations knew you were in both. They elected you knowing you were in both, but they felt that you were still the best to do the job. And I don't think we should take that right and that responsibility away from the members of organizations on campus and in student government and Parliament itself, because I think we're smarter than that. I don't think that Parliament has a low level of intelligence. I think Parliament is smart enough to recognize, well, that person's in a lot of clubs. I'm going to vote for them anyway because I know they can do the job. Or I'm not going to vote for them because I don't think they can do the job. I think we should leave that decision to members of Parliament and not tie their hands in the future to not let them vote for the people, especially when Parliament is small, especially in the times when we don't have 30 people at this table, especially when we really need the help from people that know what they're doing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next on the list is Mr. Kelly.
That was so long, I forgot what I needed. Yeah, I'll pop on this when I remember it.
Next is Mr. Escobar.
Did you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob, that was long.
Lima brought up a lot of great points. But I feel that sometimes with the e-board of SCG, that maybe one club can take over SCG and then have it go their way. You know, and it stops maybe a potential monopoly. You know, maybe in the future, this is my first year, I don't want to pass, but maybe one club has already done that before. I don't know. So,
I believe in the past there have been times when every member of the Student Government Executive Board was a member or an officer member of one club. It has happened in the past. I believe the most recent might have been the Anchor several years ago, where every member of our e-board was, I believe, an officer of the Anchor.
Want clarification?
No.
Three out of the four.
3 out of 4?
Yeah, one of the treasurer was clarification.
Yes.
Wasn't every member of last year's executive board prior to the impeachment of Eric Adams and the resignation of Chris Wood a member of WXIN's executive board in some way? Yeah, with the exception of
I didn't become an executive board member until halfway through the first semester of XIN.
No, I mean, even so, it was prior to the impeachment and resignation of Travis.
So I don't know if we can, I like the idea that Jasmine has brought up, but I think we can maybe amend it to a point where the small clubs don't get hurt. And maybe the major clubs, Anchor would survive, WXIN would survive. The major clubs, you know, that could lose a potential e-board member if they wanted to decide to go to student community government beyond the e-board. And I also feel that they don't have to resign their spot if they're running for a potential SCG office. Maybe if they get elected and they win, that's when they would resign their position.
Point of inquiry. Are you looking like stipended positions, or are you looking just executive board like positions in specific clubs? I'm just trying to make.
I think in the bylaws it could be worded where a club wouldn't get hurt by this.
Okay.
Yeah, I was bringing up examples. Harambe wouldn't be hurt if they lost.
So you're looking. Sorry for continuing the discussion, but so you're looking more like something like, as long as it would not collapse an organization or cause expandal of an organization.
Exactly.
Are you all set? Sean Andrews.
All right. I do agree, Mr. Lemmy brought up many valid points. That organization could lose a fine leader if this was to go through. However, a fine leader creates fine leaders. If you look back, Martin Luther King, who came out of that? Jesse Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, that is actually... But what I'm saying is, when you, like, if you're in an organization, when Josh and I left Harambe last year, we nominated people to run for our positions that we felt were the most qualified and the best to learn from their position. And that's how an organization is supposed to work. No, it's not supposed to be an old boys club, but the same people are like year after year after year. Now, I do think, and no one said that they can't be members of the organization. We all know that. But I do think maybe stipend organizations should have that kind of a policy on it. Because it does create a situation where the most powerful organizations on campus, namely our media organizations, you know, they hold the majority power in student parliament. And I really do think that this is something that should go through, just because the equity of it. If someone, you know, if Dennis didn't graduate, we wouldn't have been able to become the vice president, essentially, of the WXIN. So if that same person, if he stayed there year after year after year, we would never see a new leader who's been developing step up and take that position. We'll never advance ourselves if we stay in the same position. And that's how it's supposed to be. You know, that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, smaller clubs, I mean, and you know, you're talking small clubs, 4 or 5 members. Listen, Mr. Lima, last year my organization had 3 members. At the Stories, we increased our membership by 25%. So it was like, whatever, close enough. And if, you know, there are 2 people who are down for the cause, that organization will carry on regardless. I don't think it shouldn't really affect the smaller clubs, especially small clubs that people don't get paid in. Because, honestly, as the treasurer of officer, I can, if I want to. I really can. And no one say anything to me. I don't get paid for the position. It's a volunteer. I volunteer to do that because I care about the organization. I care about what it's about. So, I think in that case, it's okay. But it's not okay to, you know, enforce this kind of thing. But I do think the larger organizations with stipend positions should have that kind of policy enacted on them. Also, I do agree that the end wording is a little fuzzy, because, true, everybody has different thresholds. It's not our place to judge who can handle what in their lives. That's their business. You know, if you want to join 30 organizations, have 6 classes, and, you know, take on an internship and 30-hour-a-week part-time job, that's your business. That's not our concern. Our concern is what the students want, what the students need, and most of all the student organizations that are under our control. So that end wording, I agree, is something that, you know, is concerning. But I do, you know, I'm just going to wrap this up. We should enact this policy, but I would amend it to state that only officers in stipend positions, should they win at election, have to resign from their position in other organizations.
So are you going to make a friendly amendment?
I'll make a friendly amendment to that.
Motion?
There's no friendly amendment, doesn't need a second.
So what exactly do you want the language to say?
The amendment would basically say, no executive officer of student community government incorporated may serve on a...
No executive board member of student community government may hold a stipend position in any other student organization on campus.
Wait, Sean, can you wait till everyone else goes? Yeah.
Would you like to withhold your amendment and wait for the...
I'll withhold my amendment.
Yeah, since you already accepted it.
I didn't accept it.
I'll withhold the amendment until everybody else speaks.
Okay, so next on the list, Mr. Buckley.
I just want to address what you were saying, Mr. Escobar, about how small groups shouldn't be penalized. Maybe we can put something in this language, should it pass, that says that this policy would not affect a club that has less than 10 or 15 members, because that protects smaller groups.
More information?
Yes.
no indication of what the roster size of any club is on campus. There's no way to calculate that.
There is supposed to be though.
Yeah.
So there
The secretary is supposed
That's
to be.
untrue. I have rosters from clubs from last year.
There is, I'm sorry for speaking out of order, but it is in our bylaws, the secretary is supposed to collect rosters from organizations, however, it's not been enforced. If this were to pass, I feel like it should, or we should anyway, start enforcing that policy. I understand they're not completely up to date, but that would give a good indication of how the clubs are doing for budget plans also.
Point of inquiry also, isn't it in each student organization's constitution, it's that if you attend 2 or 3 meetings, you're a member of the group. If they're following that, then we should know.
Many groups do take a point of information. Most groups do, or I expect the groups I've been to do, take attendance at the beginning of every meeting, and also, as far as I know, because I did this 5 times, budget packets do have something that says how many members are in your group.
There is any rationale for it. There's a questionnaire that says.
As secretary last year, I asked every club with their student packet to return a roster. Some of them did, some didn't. They didn't impose a penalty on it, but I did ask. So obviously, there are some. I never really looked at them, but they're on file. That's the point.
Point of inquiry, shouldn't it be taken of bylaws if it's not, if a group's not following their constitution?
We're discussing.
I get the floor back.
Yes. Stay with the stay on the conversation.
Alright. Second, I have a question since this is brought up earlier. When we were discussing what the I don't know when it came up, but it was said that the exec board of student community government consists of the president, the vice president, the treasurer, and the secretary, and that the speaker and the deputy speaker are the executive officers of parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that the speaker and the deputy speaker would be exempt from this?
Yes, under the current order.
Just something to keep in mind, Jasmine. Third, I think there's a big difference between being an executive officer of a club on campus like Rainbow or Harambe and being an executive board of student community government. If you want to run and have your campaign and get elected by parliament to be an executive member of student community government or student parliament, you should be willing to sacrifice what other executive positions you have. That's something that you have to take into account when you choose to campaign for a stipend position on SCG. And I would like to yield the floor to Cameron Spalding.
First, I'll say why I even think that I should have the right to speak. And the first one is a lot of the talk has been about the Yanker, or those big clubs. I'm the vice president of that. And first off, I'll get into specifics of it, and I'm going to be as quick as I can. I support this. And I know I have members of my club that are instantly mad at me. But I do. And the reason I support this is I feel like you guys are something special. I've never been a member, but most of you can say I sit here almost every meeting. I love you, Nigel. But what you do is a service. And whether they're a member of the club and does it have a direct effect? No. But I don't think you can honestly tell yourself that if there's executive members of a club and they come before you and you're also an executive member of the club, that doesn't affect you. If you're saying that, you're lying to yourself. It affects you. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I know that I'd be easier on people that I'm exec board members with. Other thing, with the paid stipend positions, there's a big difference between an executive board member of the Yanker and a paid stipend member of the Yanker and their responsibilities. So I don't know how fair that is to go all the way down the board. Do they do a lot of work? Yes. Did they necessarily have the same responsibility as an executive board member in the direction of the organization, the central point of it? No, they don't. They do a job for the organization. They don't direct it. They don't do its books. They don't keep its minutes. They're members that serve a purpose. What we're talking about here is how a conflict of interest can come up. And that is when you're the treasurer of a group and you're also the treasurer of SCG. That's a conflict. That's a major conflict. And I know you talked about small groups. I hate to say it, and I don't see a necessity to put in something for small groups. And the reason I say that is it's completely unfair. It gives so much power to a small group that they don't necessarily need. And what they can do is, you talked about one group taking it over. If you're a small group that wants to grow, why don't you take over SCG? And now you control the whole show, and guess what? You can be as big as you want to be. So that's the thing. And when you become an executive board member of SCG, you've made a decision about what's important to you. You have. And I see no problem with you saying that that's more important to you than this. But you should have to say it. And it should have to be known. And yes, will it hurt a few small clubs? Yes, it will. But you want to know what? If that one club was that dependent on that person just to stay alive, did we really need that club? Did it really serve the students? We have 10,000 students, and apparently this club is held up by one. Do we need that club? I don't think we do. If any club on this campus would lose one member and fall apart, I don't think we need that club. Obviously, there isn't anybody else in that club that cares. So Alaska had 3 members and still operated. You can make it work. If you honestly think that you need 25 members to run a club, you're wrong. I run a club that has, 70 members? I also run a club that has 6. I like both of them equally. I feel like both can do anything they want to do if they really wanted to do it. You just need some people that care. And if you really only have one person that cares and when they leave you're screwed, you don't have a club. So what I just want to say that as a big member of one of the clubs that you're talking about all the time, and a member of one of those small clubs, I don't think it should be special. I think it should go to everybody. And I completely support this. And I think when you already have a conflict of interest policy like you have, I am amazed that this isn't already in there. I honestly think it's probably one of the best things that you guys have brought up this year, and you've done a lot of good things. So that's all I had to say. And I've sat here long enough without getting paid, so I'm going to leave.
Get a minute.
All set, Mr. Butler? Yeah, Mr. Butler.
I am done with my time.
Mr. James. All right. Ms. Weiss.
Yeah. I know. He actually said a few of the points that I was going to make. I completely agree. As being a student activities person, it may be funny to say, but yes, if one person leaves your club and your club is done, then maybe your club doesn't need to be Nicholas Island College. So it's okay to sacrifice. And I also think that SCG has so much more power than maybe you even realize. And it's not just any club. It's exactly as I said. It's different being from the president of, Feet, and to me, if Feet wants to take over SCG, now they can't. But wow. But it's different if you're the president of Feet and Harambe, and you're also in SCG and another organization, because SCG is kind of like the club of all clubs. And you make a lot of important decisions that affect all the other organizations. And I think a lot of it too is not even whether or not someone's biased, but the appearance of possible bias. Because you want to be kind of beyond reproach, where if someone was to accuse you of, favoring a club that you're also involved with, where you can say, completely clear conscious, no, I'm not on the board of that club and I don't make decisions for it. And then, Cameron really said a lot of my stuff. My last thing is, I don't know that, and correct me if I'm wrong as far as procedure goes, if the body needs to make all of the amendments it wants to make right now, could it not send it to bylaws?
Point of information. You're correct. We first sent the bylaws by majority vote. Bylaws would then discuss it, send it back to Parliament by majority vote, and then Parliament would have to have a 2/3 vote to pass it to go into effect next year.
Motion to send bylaws.
Already have that one.
So just something so people don't feel so pressured to come up with the perfect, wording right now that it could go to bylaws for some doctoring off of it. But thank you, Jasmine, for bringing this policy. Yeah. All right, I'm done.
All right, Ms. Julie.
Motion to send to the bylaws?
Discussion?
The motion already on the floor.
There's no
Jasmine,
motion.
did you make that motion already?
I thought that was the motion.
No, it's withheld. It's withheld.
Yeah, you need to state who seconded it.
Oh wait, who seconded?
Call it.
Motion by Ms. Dooley, second by Mr. Patterson.
What's the motion?
New list, discussion.
Discussing now about this.
We're discussing the bringing to bylaws. It was Ms. Dooley just motioned to the bylaws, Mr. Patterson seconded.
Point of information?
Yeah.
So if we send it to bylaws, and sorry, I'm not being like, okay, you guys don't do anything, but Nick is speaker and he's also part of major organizations, and the president can veto any action that we send to bylaws. Shouldn't we talk about this a little bit more?
Point of information.
Mr. Speaker.
Every committee of student government has the ability to send a minority report committee. So even if it went to bylaws and failed, the minority of the committee, so even one person votes, likes it and everyone else votes against it, which, keep in mind, Karen's on bylaws, so that's, it's not going to happen. That one person can still bring that to Parliament. They have the right to bring it to Parliament. Parliament has the right to adopt either one. So if they can adopt one that 6 people like, and one that one person likes. Secondly, yes, the president can veto an action of bylaws. But yes, Parliament also has the right to overturn the president's veto.
Point of information. It needs 2/3 of majority to go into the bylaws anyway. My vetoing it is useless because it needs my, that just says I don't like it, which I can say at the meeting if I feel that way. Because it needs 2/3 to override my veto anyway, so my vetoing is kind of useless. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You already counted.
So the discussion is to send it to bylaws. I understand that. Mr. Bonanno.
I agree that it should go to bylaws. However, I do feel I feel kind of insulted by this because I'm the only person on the executive board that has an executive board position in another organization. I hope that I didn't do something to piss everybody off, and that if I did, that somebody would talk to me about it before bringing this forward. I'm a little hurt by this because I really do take this one personally, and I tried my very best not to have a conflict of interest, and I feel I failed you guys somewhere, and I have had one. It would be a little bit different if any of my colleagues on the executive board were also executive board members of another organization. I guess I'm disappointed in myself, is what I want to say to the body. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Messer. Mr. Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I oppose saying bylaws. I don't think it's worthy of discussion in bylaws for the principal reason that in 30-year history of SCG, this has never been implemented. Why has it never been implemented? Because the founders of SCG didn't intend it, and the way this college operates versus other colleges that may have a rule like that in place is totally different. The vast minority of students at this college take part in student organizations and student government, whereas at other colleges, where the majority of students live on campus, we're talking about the vast majority take part in student government, and those are the colleges that predominantly have that rule in effect. I've looked it up in the past, and I've seen the colleges like Virginia Tech or USC or Florida Southern, that have rules in effect that prevent students actually not only from being on student government and something else, but receiving 2 stipends from any club at the same time. We're not those colleges. We're Rhode Island College. We often struggle. We struggle up at a huge uphill battle to find people to fill these seats. Right now, we're probably the fullest we've ever been. 2 years from now, we'll be back down to 10. 2 years ago, we were at 10. Keep that in mind. Keep in mind that in the future, you're not going to have a big choice of officers. You're going to have 1 or 2 people who might consider themselves as an officer candidate, again, for student government. Don't just look at right now as the example. Follow. Look at what could happen again in the future based on what has already happened in the past. Now, I'm shocked by some of the things I'm hearing thrown around. With respect, the suggestion that only media organizations should have this rule affect them. Isn't that discriminatory against media organization students who are communication majors, and just because they're a communication major and in a media organization and have a stipend because they work for a media organization, now they can't do it, but everyone else on campus can, and the other 70 clubs, including programming, which also receive stipends, then even the suggestion that only stipend-receiving organizations, such as programming and the media organizations, can.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
My friendly amendment was to make it that stipend organizations, not just.
That's what I'm talking about right now. And even that, if stipend organizations in general, like WXI and the Anchor programming, and also the future RIC TV, or if XSG yearbook comes back, they didn't get a stipend in the past, or any other organization that applies for and receives a stipend in the future, or if we have a magazine like Shoreline that in the future, works itself back up to the level of getting a stipend. We're going to restrict all the students from exercising their right as a student activity fee paying student. So again, I'm a little bit shocked that Parliament seems to overwhelmingly support limiting the rights of a student activity fee paying student at Rhode Island College to participate to the level that they want you to participate in student organizations on campus. I'm also shocked that Parliament doesn't think that Parliament itself is not intelligent enough to vote for officers who they know are members of organizations. Everyone, matter of fact, I won my election unanimously. Everyone knew that I was the treasurer of the Anchor. That wasn't a secret. Because I've been the treasurer of the Anchor all last year too. If someone ran against me, that would have been a sign. But also keep in mind, no one ran against me. Because people supported me. That's what I assume. I wouldn't know why other people would vote for me. Just going back to the history of SCG. People know
With all respect, Mr. Speaker,
Yep.
we're just discussing whether to bring some bylaws.
Yep, and I'm discussing why not bring the bylaws. Because
Point of information, is it possible to limit the time?
you can't when you have the floor.
Point of order. Would these not be points also discussed in bylaws should be sent? Should this argument take place in bylaws, not this body?
We discussed here. It's a bylaw that we're talking about. Should we discuss here, discuss there, and discuss again when it comes back, because there's a bylaw amendment that's going to affect every student government from here on out. It will be discussed 3 times. It's a very serious thing that we're contemplating, which is why I think we need to not be silly about it. We need to really take it seriously. A couple things I heard said real quick. I heard Mr. Escobar say, well, Guelph can take over student government and have it go their way. How? We have a conflict of interest policy. They can't. Members of Student Government Executive Board cannot vote on things that affect their own club. So how are they going to have it go with their own way? Give me an example. I haven't heard it. I'm just sitting and talking questions. I'm not asking questions. If somebody wants to answer them when they have the floor, they're certainly welcome to. It's the right of every student activity fee paying student to benefit from the student activity fee to the full extent. It's the right of members of the bodies of an organization to vote for who they think is best to fill the officer, regardless of their commitments, regardless of whether they're in free organizations or church group, or they play baseball on the side. If they have all these commitments, it's still up to that individual voting member to decide who they think is best. And I didn't hear a single person counter that argument. I didn't hear a single one of you say, oh, well, it's not the right for a student parliament member to vote who they think is best to hold that office position. Because I don't think there is a counter argument to that. Again, I'm discouraged that only media stipend organizations considered here, or actually only stipended organizations considered here. I think if we put it in effect, it should affect all organizations evenly. I'm also concerned that we're not talking about all officers of organizations, because an officer is an officer and an officer. I don't care if you have a little more responsibility than someone else. In some organizations, every organization runs differently. If you're an officer, you have responsibility. If we're saying that you can't do it, if you're a president, vice president, I don't think you do it if you're the sales director either. I think that should apply evenly. It's discriminatory if we don't. And I was also a little shocked that Mr. Spalding, and I regret for going against his argument when he's not present to defend it, but he actually stated he runs 2 clubs, one of which receives stipends as the Anchor, and I'm sure is a lot of responsibility, and he'll tell you that it's just as much responsibility, or very close to much as responsibility as the SCG officers maintain, and just like SCG, the Anchor, as a student newspaper of the student body, has responsibility to the entire student body. And he runs 2 clubs, yet he is very much in favor of this proposal. So I think if you receive a stipend in an organization, maybe you should run any other club. Maybe you should be executive board member in any other club. Let's be fair here. Let's consider the ramifications of what this is, because I'm sure that if this does get to the SCG bylaws, I'm going to fight very hard to make sure that it affects every student evenly and equally, as all of our policies do, as all of our bylaws do. As this is right now, it does not affect every student evenly, and that is what the intent of the bylaws has been all along. Finally, so I can say again, we already have a conflict of interest policy. That's what I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Lima. Mr. Andrews. All right, Mr. Lima, it can go their way, very easily. When someone abstains from a vote, those abstentions go to the winning side.
Point of order.